Hello, all of you wayward spirits. My name is Liz Ashley, and I am so obsessed with supernatural. I decided to do some research, Winchester style, on anything and everything mentioned in the show. And though the show has sadly ended, this podcast is going to keep the family together. So, what do you say? Do you want to join me on the hunt? This content has a lot of reference to death and disturbing situations, so listener discretion is advised. Hello and welcome to episode 3, season 3 of Wayward Spirit Pod. We are researching haunted dolls today, and let me just tell you, I am so excited. Because today we are talking to my new friend at Real Scary Podcast. Oh my gosh, we talked about so many things. We talked about Wendigos, so that's a fun little callback. And then, yeah, we talked about haunted dolls and all sorts of stuff. And it's just such a fun conversation. And I can't wait for you to hear it. So, today we're going to do things a little bit differently, and we are going to listen to the conversation first. And then we are going to talk about the episode, which is season 2, episode 11, Playthings. This was written by Matt Whitten and directed by Charles Beeson. All right, well, I will see you guys after the conversation. Let's dive in. Yay! I'm so excited to meet you. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you for asking me. I'm so
Yeah.
excited. Hey, my name's Elise, and I am your friendly neighborhood host. I host a podcast called Real Scary Podcast, and I share haunted history and haunted stories of Canada. So I started the podcast because I kind of didn't really find a podcast that I wanted to listen to that was all Canadian stories. And of course, I also really like delving into the history and doing deep dives and finding newspaper articles and talking to people. So that's kind of what I do. And I also really like to just share the true story because, as I'm sure you know, and anyone that sort of likes paranormal stories, is that scary doesn't necessarily mean like a demon hiding in the dark, right?
Yes.
Scary can be something that is true. It can be something really small and nuanced that it's true. So that's what makes it kind of creepy and kind of scary. And so those are the things that I like to talk about.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you said that because when I was listening to your podcast, it's something you said. You said like, yeah, not everything is like scary. Like it's a
Mhm.
scary story, but it's not outright scary. And I like
Yeah.
that you tell the truth because I feel like some people will just like lie to make it sound scarier. And I'm like,
Yes.
yeah, but that's not the real truth. Like,
And
you know.
a lot of places that I've talked to, there have been some that have been like, nope, we don't want to participate. And we actually don't want you to talk about it at all because they've had bad experiences in the past where people have elaborated on things to make it more scary or flat out lied about things. And that's not what I want to do. I want to tell the truth and I want
Yeah.
people to just hear the actual stories.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, thank you.
amazing.
Thanks so
And
much.
yeah, and that was in the Mandy episode. And so,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. So, yeah, okay, so you can talk about Mandy. You said that it's like similar to it's like the Canadian Annabelle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's very famous in Canada. She is
Mhm.
known as the Canadian Annabelle. She was sort of the thing that kicked off everything. She was my premiere episode, season
Yeah.
1. The first place that I heard back from. So I was like, I'm taking this as a sign that I can move forward with this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's really creepy. I can send you a picture if you want, but
Oh, I
there's
would
one up
love
on my
that.
website. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she's really creepy. Her origins are kind of unknown.
Mhm.
She was brought into the museum, and this is what I got from someone working at the museum. So
Yeah.
she was brought in by a woman who procured Mandy, I believe, sort of through family.
Okay.
And she is definitely creepy looking. She has kind of cracks on her face. She's an old doll. She's like over 100 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and she kind of had weird feelings about her, but put her downstairs and didn't really think about her. But she kept hearing a baby crying in her basement where Mandy was. So yeah, super creepy. Um, there's sort of some other stories, but I think they're a little bit blown up. We don't really know for sure, but there's some other stories about like windows being opened where they were nailed shut and all these different things, but I think they're kind of elaborated. But
Yeah.
and then when she was brought into the museum, they always wrap them sort of in plastic or put them in a bag if it's something made of fabric, right? So
Yeah.
that way, if there are any bugs or anything, they'll come out and then be trapped in the bag, and then they can sort of treat it before they introduce it into the museum.
Yeah.
So Mandy was put in a bag and left overnight, and they kept hearing rustling in the bag. So they thought, oh, there must be, you know, bugs or something in it. Well, there was nothing in it. So they thought that's kind of weird. Yeah. So she was then photographed for the collection, and the lady photographing her wasn't really done. So left her overnight, came back the next day, and like the studio was all locked and everything.
Yeah.
And it looked like a child had a tantrum in there and threw things around and like messed up the whole place. It was crazy.
Oh my gosh, that is so
Yeah. But people have gotten sick. People have had nightmares of her. They had to take her out of the front window display, because that's where she originally was. They had to take her out of there because people walking by would get headaches. They would have nightmares about her.
That's crazy.
So it's pretty crazy. And I actually did get some updates. So I just did an update episode, and I was contacted by the woman who photographed Mandy, her
awesome.
son.
Yeah.
So her son messaged me, and I sort of checked it all out to make sure it was legit.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you know, you can say anything really, but
Yeah.
yeah. So he contacted me, and he said, yeah, I haven't really thought of Mandy in years, but he said my mom photographed her and sort of became obsessed with her. And she has a little lamb with her. And when I spoke with the museum, they said, we don't know where that little lamb came from. And he said it was my sister's baby toy, and my mom brought it in to keep Mandy company. So now we know where the little lamb comes from.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. And he just said he always just hated her. Like, he just felt creepy around her. He didn't like it. His mom was always like, Mandy's lonely, and would spend like hours there.
Oh my gosh.
Terrifying. And he said the last straw for him was one winter during their off season. She said, I don't want Mandy to be alone, so I'm going to bring her home for the off season. And he's like, I'll go live with Dad. I'm not staying here.
Not with that. No, thank you.
I don't blame him. So she said, okay, fine. But he's like, if that doll would have come in the house, he said, I wouldn't have stayed there.
I don't blame him.
Oh yeah, no. Terrifying. Yeah. So, and I did speak with also a paranormal group who went there, and they were actually there. If you listen to that first episode, I also talked about the soldier uniform.
Oh, yes.
And so there were some strange things that happened with that. So he was there that night, and he said that one of their team members was looking at Mandy and kind of just froze and wasn't moving. And they were like, hello, you know, and he said it was like a good 5-6 minutes of him like just almost in a trance. And when he came to, he ran outside and threw up, and he had to go. He wouldn't come back in. So super creepy. And then and then he decided to antagonize her. Why? I don't know, but
that I'm like, why is that a smart idea?
Yeah, he said, he's like, I was young and naive, and I thought, like, I don't believe in this. So he kind of, you know, oh, if you're gonna do something, like, show me that you're real.
Yeah.
He went outside before they started and thought, like, I'll just grab a snack. And the next thing he remembers, he was right next to the highway, and which was quite a while away, like a walk away. And one of their other team members had pulled him. He was just about to walk into the highway, He
Oh my
didn't
God.
remember anything. And they were like, yeah, you were walking. We were screaming at you and stuff. And he didn't do anything. He was just walking. And he doesn't remember it even to this day. I
Whoa.
just got chills.
Yes, like that's scary. Like
Yeah.
that's scary. That scares me. I'm like, oh my gosh, because I want to go like ghost hunting, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want that to happen though. Like that's creepy.
I know. I always get offers. People are like,
Oh
oh,
really?
because you do this, you must love ghost
Yeah.
hunting. No, I don't want to.
Like I don't want any part of it.
No. I'm really interested in learning about it and like
Yeah.
sharing the stories, but do
Yeah.
I want something to happen? No.
To
No,
me,
no, no.
I know.
So I'll leave Mandy alone. I will look from
Yeah.
afar.
Yeah, that's so crazy though. I think that's really cool that you found out that where the lamb came from. Like, I
Yeah, me
love
too. I was
that.
happy to find that little piece to the puzzle. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that is so cool. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And they get offers all the time. People want to buy her, but she's not for sale. And I'm thinking, why? Why do you want to buy her?
Like who would want to buy her? I'm just kind of like I I get paranoid enough because I think I listen to too many like ghost and crime stories.
Same. Yeah.
I'm like, I already think someone's in my house. Like, I don't need like a legit reason to be scared.
Yeah. I feel the same way about like Zach Baggins and his museum. I'm thinking, why are you buying all these things? It's terrifying. Oh
It's
my
like, why
gosh.
would you do this?
Although I guess, you know what? I guess I'd rather them not be in circulation and be sort of like in one place, and then I can
That's
avoid that
true.
place.
That's true. You'll never see Mandy again.
No, no, I just
That
won't go
is true.
there. I'm good.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. That is so interesting. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
She's probably the one thing I get asked about the most
I
is
can
Mandy.
imagine.
Yeah.
I know, because yeah, I've never heard of Mandy, so that was
Mhm.
really interesting to me because I didn't know that there was like a Canadian Annabelle, and like I've seen a lot about Annabelle,
Mhm.
and that it's just so interesting to learn about Mandy. And
Yeah.
I I know for some reason this reminded me of this, but I was on TikTok the other day, and they have that filter, where it has like the energies.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and someone put it on this doll. There was like all these dolls and just one doll like started glowing, and I was like, yeah, I would have thrown that
Oh,
away.
yeah. I'd be getting rid of that thing like
Like,
immediately.
like, no, thank you.
Nope, I'm good. Yeah.
Right? Like I was like, oh, that's scary.
Yeah, I know. I'm too scared to use that in my own house. I'm like, I
Oh,
don't
same.
feel anything, but I don't want to make myself paranoid.
I have an EMF meter and I did that in my room once
Oh
and nothing
gosh,
happened. I was like, oh,
good.
okay, good. And I was like, but I was scared and I was turning it on. I was like,
Because then you think, what if it does? Can I
right.
move? Can I move now?
Like, what am I gonna do about it? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So funny. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you said you had a story about a Wendigo too?
I do. Yes. Yeah. I saw that you talked about it, and I know in the first
Yes.
couple episodes, is it episode
Two.
one?
It's episode two.
Two. Okay, I knew it was, oh
Yeah.
yeah, one is the
Lady in
ghost
White.
on the bridge.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I got my notes here.
Oh, I'm so excited. I used to hate Wendigos because the first time I heard about them was in Charmed.
Oh,
And
okay.
I just like I didn't vibe with it. I was like, I don't get this. And then for when I did the episode for Supernatural, I like rewatched it and I was like, oh, this is actually really interesting.
It is super interesting, and
Yeah.
it creeps me out because there was a Canadian, now I can't remember, but sort of an anthology series that came out. It was kind of
Mhm.
like Masters of Horror, if people know that anthology.
Yeah.
And so there was a Canadian version that came out, and there was one episode about a Wendigo. And I believe it was Doug Jones. Do you
Okay.
know who Doug Jones is? Right? He was in Buffy. He played like the
Oh, okay.
in Hush, the episode with the really creepy, like smiling
Yes.
guys. He
Mhm.
played one of them. He played in Shape of Water. He plays like the fish guy.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, he's a character actor, but he plays a
Yeah.
man who gets sort of like taken over by a Wendigo, and it's so terrifying. I'll let you know what the episode
I
is
was like,
because
I'll have to watch it. Oh
I
my god.
think it's on YouTube, but it's terrifying. So yeah, they always just creep me out. I don't know.
Yeah, because I'd want to see like it taking over someone. I feel like in all these shows, it's like they're already a Wendigo.
Mhm.
Yeah, I want to see that like process.
Yeah, like the descent.
Yeah.
Okay, so this story is actually from my home province.
Oh, that's
So it's
awesome.
from Alberta.
Okay.
And so it took place in the 1870s.
Oh wow.
And it's like very well documented, like newspaper articles.
Yeah.
There's photos of him. I'll send you, I have a picture of him. So
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah. So the guy, he was a Cree man and
Okay.
he was known as Swift Runner. That was sort of his name. He was like over 6 feet tall. He had a wife and 5 kids, and he worked as a guide and
Mhm.
worked a lot with like the RCMP and stuff like that.
Okay.
And he was really well liked. People really liked him. So this one winter, he decided to take his family hunting and trapping, which was pretty normal. And his brother-in-law and mother-in-law also went with him. So they went, and the winter was really harsh that year. So a lot of people starved to death and things like that.
Yeah.
So when spring came, he came back to sort of the main area, and he looked really good, really well fed, if
Oh
you know what I
no.
mean. But he was alone.
Oh no.
And he said, "Oh, yeah, my family all starved to death." And they were like,
Uh,
because they're looking at him. He doesn't
right,
look
like
like
you didn't
he,
starve to death.
yeah.
Oh.
So they were, yeah, so they were really sort of not sure what was going on there, to put it nicely. So they decided to go and investigate. So they went to his campsite. They saw a lot of bones around, and they said, "Well, what are these from?" He said, "Oh, my son died, and yeah, those are his bones." And they're like, "What?" Well, they saw a grave, they dug it up, and it was his son.
Yeah.
And they said, "Okay, well, what are all these other bones for?"
Right.
And it really didn't take a lot. He kind of just then confessed and said, "Yeah, I killed them all and I ate them." So
Oh my gosh.
he yeah, pretty disturbing.
He's just like, yeah, sure, I ate them all. Like,
Yeah,
what?
it didn't take much at all. And he's like, "Yeah, that's what I did." I
It's like
think,
it's your whole family.
yeah. And his mother-in-law and like he went into pretty much a lot of detail, just kind of saying, "This is what happened. Yep, I killed this one first. I did that. I did this." And he
Oh,
told them that he was starting to become tormented by a Wendigo. So in Cree legend, a Wendigo turns your heart to ice and then makes you crave human flesh, right? So they obviously, and other Cree people, believed that. They really believed. I mean, why would he just kill his family? It's
right,
true.
right, right.
So he said that he was possessed by this Wendigo, and he did that. And the trial was pretty quick, though. The judge obviously didn't take that into account. It's like,
Right.
I don't know what that means, and no.
It's like you killed
So
your family.
yeah, you killed and ate like children and your wife and no. So yeah, it was pretty quick. It was over really fast, and he was hung on December 20th, 1879. And when he was up on the gallows, he said, "Yeah, I did it. Thank you to the guards for being so nice to me." And that's it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's insane.
So crazy. So yeah, it's a pretty famous story in our province for sure.
That's so like I feel bad saying it sounds cool, but like
It's just interesting
it
because it
is.
seems
Yeah.
so like Hollywood, right? I mean, it seems like a
Right.
TV show or some kind of
Right.
story for a movie. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Right. And it's like I I couldn't even imagine. Like
I know.
I don't even like if I would probably be the one. I'd be like, just let me starve to death. I'm okay. Like
Well,
I
or
don't
like
want to be
try to
the
find
one.
your way back home or something. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to like I don't yeah. I don't know if I would ever resort to eating other people.
No.
I don't know if that would yeah. That's that's a crazy story though. And it's crazy that it like was documented and that's like
Oh
what he
yeah.
said. Like
Mhm.
that's amazing.
Yeah, many newspaper articles and things like that, which is something you just don't ever think you're gonna see
No,
or read.
no. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like so I don't know when I was doing like when I was talking about the Wendigo, I started to believe it too. I was like, man, this could be real. I was like, this
Totally.
totally could be real.
Well, and even if maybe it's not like an entity, but obviously the
Right.
person
Believe.
believes that this is
Yeah.
what's happening. And that's so
Yeah.
scary. The
Yeah.
power of the mind is really,
Oh, yeah.
is powerful.
Insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Oh my gosh. I love that story.
Yeah.
That's
It's pretty
amazing.
crazy.
You said you had another one? I'm sorry, I forgot which
Yes.
one what did you say which one it was?
Okay, so I have a story. It's called The Screaming Doppelganger. And
Yes. Oh,
yeah.
I'm so excited. I'm actually going to talk about doppelgangers in this
Oh,
season.
perfect.
I'm so excited for this. Yes, let's talk about.
Perfect. So interesting. And I didn't realize like how many cases again documented of doppelgangers being seen like have actually happened in history.
That. I see. I
Super
didn't know
interesting.
that. I haven't
Yeah.
researched it yet. So this is all new information. I'm so excited.
You're going to be loving it. Like there's so much history and so much that you'll find. It's so
Oh, I'm so
interesting.
excited.
Yeah.
I'm
Like
excited.
apparently Abraham Lincoln, I don't know if it was him or someone around him saw his doppelganger before he died because it's supposed to, yeah, it's supposed to sort of like warn of like
Mhm.
death coming, right?
Yeah.
So really crazy. Yeah, he
Oh,
was one of
so
them. And like
crazy.
Queen Victoria, I think it was.
Oh my.
There's a couple like famous ones where they saw their doppelganger or someone else did, and then shortly after the person died.
That's so cool. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
cool, but like it's really
Oh,
cool.
well,
I
yeah.
I only know like I always feel bad saying things are cool, but I'm like I think it's cool. But I just know a little bit about doppelgangers because of the Vampire Diaries.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yes.
I knew kind of like just the basics. I was like, okay, I
Right.
mean, I kind of know what a doppelganger is, but
Right,
yeah, it's so
kinda.
interesting. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited to hear.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a park in Vancouver, BC called Beacon Hill Park.
Mhm.
And so in the 1970s, again, very documented, lots of witnesses saw a woman standing at the entranceway, one of the entrances to the park. She
Mhm.
was standing sort of on these rocks. She was blonde haired, long blonde hair, very fair, standing there motionless. She would not, if people went up to her to ask if she needed help, wouldn't answer, wouldn't acknowledge anybody there.
Oh my gosh.
And sometimes she would be seen with her mouth open, like she was screaming, but she wouldn't be screaming. She just would have her mouth open.
That's so weird.
Yeah. And so many people saw her. It was always in the morning and then she'd just be gone. Happened quite often. And then all of a sudden stopped. So people kind of forgot about it.
Right, right.
Then moved to 1983. Suddenly, the exact same spot, people started seeing a woman there again. And people who had been there in the 70s were like,
It's the same thing.
remembering.
Yeah.
And so what was different about this one was she was almost like a photo negative of the woman before. Looked exactly the same, but was darker complexion and long dark hair.
Okay.
Same thing, would stand there, wouldn't acknowledge anybody, nothing, and would sometimes look like she was screaming.
So
And so, yeah, but the difference between them two was the first one looked solid, like looked like a person. This one was more mist-like, like an apparition.
huh.
So,
That's
like
interesting.
so shortly after, a woman was found dead in a shallow grave right by where this doppelganger was seen.
Oh my gosh.
And once she was found, people stopped seeing her sort of on the corner. But sometimes apparently they still see her in the park. And again, she sometimes is crouched down, just terrifying
That
to
is terrifying.
picture. She'll be crouched down and people will go up and like tap her on the shoulder to see if she's okay. And she'll be screaming.
Oh my
So,
gosh. See, I'm
yeah,
not that bold. Like if
no,
like I apologize to anyone who's actually upset, but like I would not tap you on the shoulder because I don't
yeah.
trust people.
Well, and
I don't know what I yeah.
Vancouver parks too. I'm like,
But
I don't know that I'd go up to somebody there. I'd be too scared.
like I don't know if I just like, hey, are you okay? Like obviously they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I might shout from a distance, but
Right.
I'm not going to tap them on the shoulder.
Right. I'm
Yeah,
not no, I'm not gonna get that close.
no.
Yeah. That's so crazy.
So her name was Donna Martin, and she was murdered, buried there, and looked exactly like the apparition that people had seen.
Yeah.
And then the first person, so people sort of believe that the first one, the more solid one, was the doppelganger. She was basically warning of this woman's death.
Right.
And then once she died, those years later, then that was her spirit, like, here I am, I'm buried here. So that's what people believe happened there.
That's
super interesting.
cool. I like that theory. I really
Yeah. And it makes
That's so
sense.
cool. It does make sense, because I was gonna ask, like, the apparition, like, would that be her, like, after
Yeah,
she's dead, just being like, yeah, that
exactly.
happened.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's
Pretty
crazy.
interesting and sad. And I think the
Yeah.
reason people still see her is because the person they believed killed her was never brought to justice. He killed
Oh,
himself
really?
before they could
Oh, wow.
arrest him. So, so I think that's why she's still kind of lingering there. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So, yeah. That's insane.
so crazy.
That's
Yeah.
insane. Oh my gosh. That's so crazy. I never knew much about doppelgangers, but like that's interesting. That's
Hmm.
so cool. I love lore. And
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's just so cool to me.
I know. I'm the same.
Wow.
Like, I love the research part of it and like looking
Yeah.
into it and seeing, like you say, like the lore or the history
Yeah.
part. I love that part. Yeah.
I love that, like, you talk to people though. Like I've been trying to get better at talking to people about things, and yeah, so I love that you like reach out to people and like talk to people from the museum, and like just that's so cool to me, because you have like real facts. And I'm like, that's
And you know
awesome.
what? My advice is
Yeah.
don't be nervous, because I thought there's no way people are probably going to be like, oh my God, I'm not talking about this, or that's ridiculous.
Right.
I would say from the people that I reach out to, probably 85% are like gung ho and ready to talk about it and, willing to give any kind of information. So a lot more people than I thought.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's so cool. I love that. That's so
Yeah.
cool. Oh my gosh. Talk about anything that's coming up with your podcast. I would love to hear it.
So my premiere episode is the Charlotte County Archives in New
Okay.
Brunswick,
Yeah.
and they're amazing. They're super excited. I've found, actually, I think since like COVID and all the lockdown stuff, I find more people, maybe they're going stir crazy too, but they're really like into it.
We're like, sure, let's talk.
Yeah. And they're like, we'll send you all this info. And they're awesome. Like, they're just sending me all
That's
these things and they're doing like videos, and it's great. So that's
That's
awesome.
amazing.
But this location, I had my first paranormal experience like with a location that I've been talking to.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yes. So, like I say, since this is coming out after, then I'll talk about it.
Yeah, yeah.
But one really common thing, so the archives is actually in their old jail. So the jail was built in like 1835.
Wow.
And the main floor has the untouched 10 basically cells that they had way back when. So they haven't been renovated. They are as they were. And then upstairs is the archives. Yeah, super cool.
That's
So
so cool.
yeah, and then next door is the Charlotte County Courthouse, and it's not in use anymore as a courthouse, but it was up until I think 2017.
Oh wow.
So pretty recently.
Yeah, that is recent.
And they've got a bunch of crazy stuff that happens over there too, but they do ghost walks and all this stuff like all the time.
Yeah.
And something really common that happens is people hear growling in the cell block. And one time, the one lady that I talked to, when a paranormal group was in, they had one of those Ovilus boxes.
Yes.
Right. So they asked her if she wanted to ask a question. She said yes. She said, "What makes the growling sound in here?" And it came out immediately and said wolf.
Okay.
And and they got, I believe, on tape, yes, she sent it to me. They got a growl like in between them that sounded like a dog like growling over its bone or food. It was crazy.
Oh my gosh.
So when I was talking to them, and of course I wasn't recording, rookie move, I was like, we don't need to record because we already did our interviews. We were just talking about some stuff that we would be doing. And I heard a growl 2 separate times. and I was alone in my house. My cats were sleeping, and it wasn't coming from my side. And the ladies like didn't flinch. They weren't moving, so it wasn't anything in there. But I thought the first time it happened, I thought, okay, I probably just heard something,
Imagined it, yeah.
something else. And then it happened a couple minutes later again, a little bit louder, like, no, you hear me.
Like,
I'm
this is
growling, you hear me. So
Oh
it
my
was super
gosh.
creepy. Yeah. But they have insane stories from there. Like just people send photos. They have like video, lots of audio. I mean, amazing stuff. So
That's so
really cool
cool.
place. And
That's
then I'll be talking about the Capitol Theater in Moncton, New
okay.
Brunswick. I'm really into the East Coast this season, apparently. So,
Love it.
so I'll be talking to them. They had a huge fire in the early 1900s, and a fireman passed away.
Mm.
And they believe that he's sort of their resident ghost, and he kind of like watches over them. It's kind of like really cool
I
story.
love that.
Yeah. And then another place called the Algonquin Hotel. They have, I talked about sort of a ghost bride at the Banff Springs Hotel in Alberta. I spoke about that last season.
Mm-hmm.
And so they kind of have their own ghost bride story. So I'll be talking to them. And then I have a bunch of legends I want to get into,
Yes.
which is always fun. So
Mhm.
yeah, there's lots coming up for season 3.
Yay. Oh my gosh, that's that's so cool that we're both on season 3, like at kind of the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool. I didn't know that until like later, but yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah. What's coming up on yours?
Okay, so doppelgangers
Yeah.
definitely, and then okay, so the first episode of season 3, I'm I'm like obsessed with the Mandela effect, okay?
Okay.
I am obsessed. So I really want to talk about it.
Hmm.
I'm relating it to I don't know what season it's in, but there's like a season where Balthazar like takes away the Titanic,
Okay.
and it like shifts into like a different world kind of,
Hmm.
and then it shifts back.
Right.
And so it's kind of like the Mandela effect, and I don't know, it's like my favorite conspiracy theory, and I love
So
it so much.
interesting. Yeah.
I I just think it's so fascinating,
Yeah.
and now people think we've like switched back into our old world in 2020. I know it's like a whole thing.
Oh, yes. I've heard that.
See
Yes.
that?
Yes. What is it that 2020 was an alternate universe, right? Or
Yes,
an alternate world or
something like
timeline.
that. Yeah,
And then
and
now
like
we're back in 2020. What should 2020 should have been?
yes, because okay, so like Fruit Loops was spelled differently for a while, and then like now it's
Ooh.
back to its like original spelling.
Right.
But like well, like I don't know, because that was never my thing. The thing that got me was the Mandela thing, because I really thought he died in prison.
Right.
He didn't. And I was like, I could swear to you that I learned that in a history class. I can almost
Oh,
promise you
seriously.
I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what hooked me on the
Hmm.
Mandela effect. But there's a lot of other things. And I guess some people are
Yeah.
saying, oh, things are going back to their old spellings. And
Hmm.
I was like, oh, I didn't notice, but okay.
Yeah, I didn't either.
But I guess that's the point. I don't know.
Yeah. Super
um
interesting. You'll need like 7 episodes because I think you'll fall down a rabbit hole on
I
that.
will.
So cool
There's
though.
gonna be like a part 2 or something, because
Yeah.
this just it fascinates me, because I'm
Hmm.
just so fascinated in like other dimensions and like stuff
Yeah.
like that. So I'm like, okay, this is gonna be good. So that's my
Hmm.
first episode, and then I'm gonna talk about Amazons too. I've never really looked into them, but
Yeah.
there's like a whole episode about it on Supernatural, and
Yeah.
the lore seems pretty interesting. So I'm gonna go into that too. And the Mark of Cain,
Hmm.
and yeah.
You know what another really good one is that I
Yeah.
didn't realize, and now on TikTok, I keep seeing TikToks about it, and I'm like, is fairies. I
Yes.
didn't know they're like bad and all these little like they're kind of like evil little things. I had no idea.
Yeah, not all of them are good. Yeah, no.
I
Yeah.
know because probably like 2 or 3 times a season I do one thing called histories and mysteries.
Oh,
So
cool.
I talk with one of my friends and she's really gets scared easily. So I love talking to her because then I just pick the scariest stories I can.
There.
Yeah. And we talk about sort of like mysteries and unsolved mysteries and weird
Yeah.
things. And we did one this last season about a woman who was in, I believe it was somewhere in Ireland, and she was obsessed with like the occult. It was in like the 1920s, and she was found on a fairy mound where people in the area were like, we don't go at night unless you're holding like a switch to like, beat them off because they're scared of them. Like we want to get them away from us.
Yeah.
And she was found on this fairy mound, and all of her jewelry had turned black, and like people had seen this weird blue light and stuff. I'll get you her name. So if you
Oh
do
my
something on
gosh.
fairies, you have to look into that.
Yes.
It's
Oh, I
crazy.
eventually I will, because there's like a whole episode where it's like fight the fairies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Oh
so
my gosh,
crazy.
that is so cool. I never knew that.
I
Oh,
had no idea. Yeah. And I started looking into stuff and I had to stop because I'm like, I'm going to make this whole episode about fairies because it's so interesting.
it's so interesting.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
only know like a little. I only knew that like fairies aren't always good, because
Mhm.
I get the witch talk a lot, because I am
Me
in,
too.
like, I think it's so interesting. I'm like, this is
Same.
so interesting.
Yeah.
And so that's the only reason like I know. But other than that, I'm like, I want to look more into fairies, because they are,
Yeah.
and so are like not gnomes, but leprechauns.
Oh, yeah.
They're
Yeah.
not good either, really.
Mhm.
And I just think it's so cool.
I know. And I think that for people who live in like Ireland and
Mhm.
Scotland and, for them,
It's like
it
real.
is a real thing that they've grown
Yeah.
up with and grown up to be like, oh no, like that is something that we like
Yeah.
fear or we're, careful of. And
Right.
for us, like at least for sure in Canada, I know, I
Yeah.
mean, we see like Lucky Charms and all these things that like make
Right.
them seem like some goofy thing. I
Right.
had no idea. And so it's really
Yeah.
interesting to like delve into those things and yeah.
Yeah. It's
Mhm.
so cool. Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm excited to hear your next season. Like, all of that sounds so
Thank you.
interesting. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. Like, that's
Same. I'm loving
oh,
yours
thank you.
too. I love it. And it makes me want to like keep watching
Oh,
Supernatural again. I'm like, yes, I
I'm
need to
glad.
continue on my journey back to Supernatural.
Just be careful, because there are some spoilers. I know I reached out to another supernatural podcast, and they're like, "Yeah, we haven't listened to all of yours yet because we don't want any spoilers." And I was like, "Okay, good. That's yeah, that's
But on
reasonable."
the same account, I'm like, Supernatural's been out for long enough. I
Right.
kind of feel like,
It's been out. I know. I know. I'm trying not to talk about season 15 yet, because I know
right.
people are still like
Yeah.
getting there. So like I
Hmm.
haven't really talked about that yet.
Hmm.
That'll probably be it down the road, because
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But it's so cool. It's great. I love it.
Thank
Mhm.
you. I appreciate that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for coming on. Like, seriously, this was so much fun.
Oh, well, thank you so much. We should do it
Yeah.
again. I would
Oh
be
my god.
totally willing. Yeah.
I would love that. That would be so
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. Well, awesome. Oh my
Oh,
gosh, thank you so much. And then yeah, do you want to like share your like Instagram or
sure.
where we can find you?
Sure. Yeah. So it's pretty easy. I'm lucky that they're pretty much all the same. So I can be found on Facebook and Instagram at Real Scary Podcast. And my website is realscarypodcast.ca. And my Gmail is realscarypodcast@gmail.com. So really easy.
That's awesome.
And I have some merch coming out too with this season. So
Great.
that'll be kind of fun. So I was going to tell
So
you, give
fun.
me your address after. I'll send you some stuff.
Oh, oh my gosh, thank you. I actually have
Yeah.
some merch coming out soon too, so I
Oh,
can send you
perfect.
some stuff.
Perfect. That would be
Oh my
great.
gosh, this is so awesome. I am so happy I met you.
Me too.
I was gonna say something, but I forgot. It's okay. Oh, your website's really cool. That's what I was gonna
Oh,
say. Your
thank you.
website's really cool. So check out her website. It's really cool.
Thanks so much. Yes, my lovely friend Tanis Zach. She's a digital illustrator
Oh, that's
here in Alberta, and she's
awesome.
amazing. She's done my logo, and I have like a new design coming out, so she's done both. So
That's so
yeah.
exciting. That's awesome.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, yay. It was so good to meet you. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
coming on.
You too. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye.
Yes. Bye.
Okay, so let me just start off by saying that I haven't seen this episode in like so long, and this episode starts out like so creepy. Like it's such a good episode, but I forgot about it. Like I forget about it a lot, and it's been a while since I've seen it. But yeah, it was such a good episode to watch. So freaking good. All right. So this episode starts out with a creepy house, which I guess used to be like a hotel or an event venue. And this was season 2, so things were still like creepy and scary and everything like that. But we see two small girls sitting near the stairs while they're like the mom let someone in to take some of their old stuff, I'm guessing. And yeah. And it looks like she's closing it down. So I think it's a hotel. And as this guy is like going upstairs to like collect things, oh my gosh, we see this like collection of the creepiest freaking dolls ever. Like, and there's so many of them. Like there were so many of them. It was crazy. And this like ginormous dollhouse, like bigger than the one bigger than the one in PLL. Do I have any PLL fans out there? Yes, I love Pretty Little Liars. So I love Pretty Little Liars. But yeah, it every time I like think or talk about a dollhouse, like I immediately think of Pretty Little Liars. So this whole freaking episode, that's all I thought about. But this, yeah, like this dollhouse was huge. It was gigantic. But after we see all these creepy dolls, we hear this like blood curdling scream. And it was from the mom because the guy who was taking that stuff, like, he fell down the stairs and his neck, like, oh my gosh, it was so gross. But his neck was like turned around. Like it was like his neck was like all the way around. Oh my gosh. It was so disgusting. Like so disgusting. Disgusting. And it was so weird because he was like still kind of breathing. Like and his neck was like his neck was like twisted and he was still kind of breathing. It was like really, it was really strange. Really strange. And then to make it even creepier, there was a doll with a cracked face, like laying right next to him as he died. Oh my gosh, it was so weird. All right. So now we see Sam and Dean in a motel, and seeing them in the earlier seasons it just makes me so freaking happy because they're so cute. And I know I always talk about the aesthetic when we watch the newer like the older episodes because I just the aesthetic is just it makes you feel some type of way. All right. So Sam heard about a job that was at a hotel from Ellen, and that's the hotel that the guy died at. And she told him that this lady drowned in the bathtub. So I guess someone drowned in the bathtub, and and then that another guy fell down the stairs, which is the guy we just saw like snap his neck down the stairs. And she was like, his head turned 180 degrees, which is not natural. Like, exactly. The whole scene was like not normal at all. It was like crazy. It was like really cringy. But then we see them driving down to the haunted hotel, and it's so epic because Gene is like so excited. He's like, I never get to do these jobs anymore, like an old school haunted house. Yes, yes. Dean is like my spirit animal in this episode. That is, yes, that sounds so fun. Like, I can't wait to go real life ghost hunting again. I'm planning it right now for Wayward Spirit TV, and I just can't wait. And I'm so excited. And yes, okay. I'm excited too, Dean. He also mentioned Scooby Doo, which I just think is really funny, and I love it. I love when they mention Scooby Doo like before Scooby Natural. It's great. But as Sam and Dean are walking into the hotel, they find a hoodoo sigil on the front and wonder why or who put it there. Like, why is this hoodoo sigil here? So as Sam and Dean are checking in, it's like really funny. Like this whole scene is just like it's so funny yet cringy. So now they're in the room and they're going over all of the victims that just died, and they realize that all of these people, what they were like trying to help with the sale of the hotel, because she's selling the hotel. And they're like, well, someone in here obviously doesn't want the hotel to get sold, and they think that's why there's like those hoodoo sigils all around. But it's really weird. So in their room, there's like this white dress like on the wall, like as decor, and it's like really strange. The way like it looks like it's supposed to be like a ghost or something, like it's a ghost of the woman in white or something. I don't know, but it it really does, and I'm just like, who, like Dean was like, who would want to stay here? And I'm like, yeah, I agree. Like that's really strange. It was really strange. So as they were walking around, they find a vase with the same hoodoo sigil from the front of the house. And they proceed to knock on the owner's door with like without a plan of what they're gonna say or what they're gonna ask. They literally just knock on her door. And it's so funny. And they're just like, hey. She's like, hey. And then Dean sees this like creepy and like ginormous doll collection, and he asks to look at them because he's like, oh, Sam over here, Sam has a major doll collection, like he loves dolls. And Sam's face is so funny. Oh my gosh, it's like the best thing ever. Like literally, it's hilarious. Oh my gosh, it is great. All right, but and so she does, like she lets them in to look at the dolls because Sam loves dolls. Oh my gosh. But apparently they have been in the family forever, and that big doll house is actually a replica of the hotel. So no wonder it's so freaking big. But Sam notices the doll with the head turned around, like literally turned around, and probably because it is a replica of that guy that just died. Seriously, creepy, so freaking creepy. And then Tyler comes in the room, which is the daughter, one of the girls we saw in the beginning, and she's complaining about Maggie being mean to her. And that's the other girl we saw in the beginning. And so Sam asks her why she turned this guy's head around, like on the doll. And she said that she didn't break it and that her grandma would be mad if she broke it. So if she didn't break it, who did? That's the real question. So then, of course, they asked to talk to the grandma, and the mom's like, no, no. She was like, no, no. And it was like real quick. It was like real quick. Like she was just like, no, 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 no. And then she was like, she's sick. Like she's really sick. Like, no. So, little suspicious. So Dean and Sam proceed to talk about how like hoodoo and voodoo practices actually use dolls, and how like she could be using the dolls to do this so like they don't buy the hotel. And then the next thing we see is a guy coming in who is a part of like he's like part of the people who are buying it, and the owner's like, oh well, what are you gonna do with it, you know, just so like, yeah, what are you gonna do? And he's like, oh, we're gonna demolish it. Yes, he says that they're gonna demolish it, which is not good for him. So we see the little girl Tyler playing with dolls, and she's like playing in the play hotel, and then it's like going back and forth between her playing with her dolls in like the play hotel and this guy who's going to like buy it in the real hotel, and it goes back and forth. And the buyer, like when he gets to his room, it's like really weird. He just sits on the bed and he just kind of like stares out into space and just like sits on the bed. And all of a sudden, both doors in the play hotel replica thing and in the real hotel, both doors start to shut and creak open, and will creak close, start to shut and creak close. And then the next thing we see is Tyler finding the same doll. So she didn't even touch it. She just like turned around, and this doll, trigger warning, was hung from the ceiling of this hotel replica thing. And then, you guessed it, the buyer guy in his room, trigger warning, hung himself from the ceiling. Dun dun dun. Dun dun dun. Okay. Also, side note, she was singing Ring Around the Rosie, and like, that song is so creepy to me because it's about the Black Plague, I'm pretty sure, because it was like Ring Around the Rosie, pocket full of posy, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. That's what it's about. It's about the Black Plague and how like they had to burn people into ashes so they wouldn't like give people the Black Plague and their yeah, no, that nursery rhyme is so creepy. Like, why is it a nursery rhyme? Like, I don't understand. Okay, but Dean went to go check on Sam to see if he was okay, to see if he found anything, because like he was supposed to be doing research. And Dean went to go tell him about the guy that just hung himself, and Sam is drunk. He's so drunk, and it's so funny. It's hilarious and it's so cute. Oh my gosh, it is so funny. It really is. And Dean is like not happy that Sam is drunk. He's like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? But Sam is upset because he thinks he should have found a way to save that guy. Like, he thinks he should have found a way to save that guy. So Dean puts him to bed and is sad because Sam just he wanted to save them, and he's like, everyone around me is dying, because this is when he thought he was like becoming evil, and all that stuff with like Azazel was happening. Was it Azazel? Yeah, Yellow Eyes. Yeah. All that stuff with him was happening. And so he just like he thought he was like destined to become evil. So he was really, really sad. It was honestly, it was so sad. So Dean goes down to the bar alone to start like investigating alone, and he talks to like the bellhop, who's apparently the bartender also, and he talks to the bellhop, and he's like, have you ever heard about it like being cursed? And the bellhop's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I think it's cursed. And then he went around and he was like telling Dean all of these stories of the history of the hotel and how the grandma had like lived there her whole entire life. She had never lived anywhere else, and she didn't want to leave. Like, she didn't want to leave. And so of course Dean's like, oh man, it's the grandma. Especially when they come across the childhood picture of the grandma, and she is sitting on the lap of her nanny, who was wearing a hoodoo sigil on her necklace. So Dean was like, well, I guess the nanny is teaching Grandma Rose hoodoo, and that's how she's doing all this. So this has nothing to do with anything, but when they go to the next scene, it's like really slow and kind of weird. I don't know, it's like a really interesting choice. It was really like go watch it. Yeah, it was just really weird. It was just really, really weird. Okay, anyway, now we see poor little Sammy puking in the toilet. And Dean is like getting such a kick out of it. It's so funny. Like, they're so cute. I love like young them because they like it's so cute. But anyway, so Dean proceeds to tell Sam about Grandma Rose and how the nanny taught her all of this hoodoo. And so they decide to sneak into the grandma's room when the owner isn't there. Of course they do. Oh my gosh. And she like cannot like answer or talk to them or anything. And so Sam's like, well, then it's not hoodoo. Like, she's not doing the hoodoo because she had a stroke and like she can't even move her hands. And, you need to like mix herbs and stuff for hoodoo. So he's like, that's not her. And Dean's like, well, she could be faking it. And Sam's like, what are you gonna do? Poke her with a stick? And Dean just makes this face like, maybe. And Sam's like, dude, you are not going to poke her with a stick. Oh my gosh, they're just so funny. They're just so funny. All right. So, of course, the owner ends up finding them and like freaks out. I mean, like, freaks out and tells them to leave. So, of course, they do. And as they're driving down the road leaving, it looks so aesthetically pleasing. Like, I think that's why, like, I like watching Baby go down the road just makes me like, it's just like, oh, it's so aesthetically pleasing. It's just so pretty. Okay. It does. It gives me so much joy. And like the early seasons, they give me so much joy because it's just so fun to watch. They're so aesthetically pleasing. Okay. Anyway, so now we see Tyler and Maggie, and Tyler like starts talking to her mom about Maggie, and that is when the mom says that Maggie is imaginary. She's imaginary. Oh my gosh. Game changer. Oh no. So the mom's like, you're too old for imaginary friends. So, of course, Maggie is like, I don't like her, which from her track record is obviously not a good thing for Maggie not to like you. All right. So then, as the little girl, so Tyler is back upstairs playing with the dollhouse again. Like, she really loves these dolls in this dollhouse. The mom is outside, and the swings outside started moving. And of course, so did the swings inside of the replica hotel. And then everything else starts moving. Like, there's all this like playground equipment and everything, and it just starts like violently moving everywhere. Just no one using it, no nothing, just like violently moving everywhere. And the same thing is happening in the dollhouse. And the mom, of course, when all this is moving, she starts going towards it. I don't know why, and I don't understand how she thinks she's going to stop it. I'm like, why would you go towards the violently moving objects? It doesn't make sense to me. I feel like they do this in like all horror movies. They go towards the danger, and I'm like, but why? But why? Like, you didn't no. Oh my gosh, it's so weird. Anyway. But now her car starts moving. So her engine like turns on and her car starts moving towards her. But out of nowhere, Sammy comes to the rescue and like pushes her out of the way and like grabs her. And Sammy is such a hero. My hero. I love him. Okay. So Sam and Dean take her inside and tell her the truth. And they're like, look, we thought it was a hoodoo curse. Now we think it's a vengeful spirit. And she's like, you're crazy. And Dean's like, yeah, it's been said. I love it. It's so funny. So they ask when the mom had a stroke, and it actually happened a month before the killing started happening. So Sam thinks that Rose was using hoodoo to ward off the evil spirit, And that is when she had a stroke and she couldn't do it anymore. So that is why all these people started dying. So Sam is like, look, like we all need to leave tonight, including your daughters. Like we need to go. And and that's when the mom, of course, is like, daughters? Like I have one daughter. And they're like, wait, what about Maggie? And she's like, oh, she's imaginary. And they're like, oh, maybe not. Not really. She's not that imaginary. Sorry to break it to you. Oh my gosh. Now we see Maggie upstairs, like telling the grandma. So I guess the grandma can see her too. And she's telling the grandma that her granddaughter is going to stay there forever with her, which, whoo, get it? Like she wants the granddaughter to die so she's not alone and oh, she'll stay there forever. Like creepy. So Sam and Dean and the mom go into the doll room, and all of the dolls are like torn apart, and their heads and their limbs are just like everywhere, which is even creepier than it was before. And so they're like looking for Tyler, and Sam and Dean are like, you sure you don't know anyone named Maggie? Like, how, like, you have to know someone named Maggie. And she's like, wait, my mom had a sister named Margaret who drowned in the pool when they were kids, which, oh no, crazy. And now we see Tyler and Maggie at the same pool about to jump in, but it's covered with plastic. So, like, if she jumps, she could get suffocated by the plastic. And oh, and she even tells her, Tyler's like, she tells Maggie, she's like, I don't know how to swim, which is even worse. And so she's like, I don't want to jump. I don't want to jump. And it's just like, oh my gosh, it's so like heart, like it's like you're like on the edge of your seat, like ah. But Maggie is telling her that she needs to jump. She's like, you need to jump. You have to jump. Oh my gosh. It's oh, and then Tyler doesn't understand. She's like, why can't you just come with me? And Maggie's like, because I can't leave here. Which reminds me of American Horror Story. Any AHS fans out there? Yes, I love American Horror Story. That reminds me of that because if you've watched it, the hotel one, all of these people, like the ghosts are there still. And then same with the murder house. Yeah. Yeah, I love AHS. All right. Now Maggie is like begging her to jump because she doesn't want to be alone, which is kind of sad, but it's also really creepy. And now we see Sam and Dean and her mom like booking it to the pool, like just like booking it. And when they get there, they try to get in, but like all the doors are locked. And then we see Tyler fall into the water. Oh my gosh. I forgot that happened. Like, I forgot she fell into the water, and I was like, no, no. So then I think Sam like heard her scream, and so he just like breaks the freaking window in. Like I don't even remember what he used, but he like breaks it in. I think he uses his I think he kicks it a lot. But yeah, he just like breaks it in. And then like we see Tyler like coming up from the water, and Maggie is like literally pushing her back in. Pushing her back in. But this moment also reminds me of another PLL scene when Paige is pushing Emily back into the water. Wild. All right. So Maggie is like killing Tyler when she hears this voice screaming from above, like screaming Margaret from above. And Maggie just like disappears. And then Sam jumps in the pool with the plastic still on and saves her. And they all turn out okay, and it's so cute, and I love Sammy. Oh my gosh. Okay. So now they're trying to find Maggie, but Tyler says that she is gone. But she's not gone. We see her talking to the grandma, and apparently, like, Maggie can read the grandma's thoughts because they're having like a whole conversation without like even saying a word. It's weird. But Maggie is saying that she thought that Rose didn't love her anymore because she didn't want to have her around, because she was putting like all the hoodoo sigils around to not have her there anymore. And then she's like, okay, little sister. It's like really creepy. And then she proceeds to kill the grandma. So I'm guessing the grandma was like, well, kill me. I'll stay with you to like salvage my family. So that's what happened. It's really, really sad. It's so sad. Mm. But Maggie is like gone now, and the mom gives Sam this like lingering hug at the end to like thank him. And Dean's like, uh-huh, looks like you could have gotten some MILF action there. It was. I saw it and I was like, ooh, that's it's a little awkward, okay. Oh, it's so funny. Oh my gosh. I love them so much. But at the very end, they go through the hotel and we see two little girls playing in the doll room, which was Maggie and Rose. Yeah, I was going to say Maggie and Tyler, but it was Maggie and Rose. Of course. All right. Crazy. And it was like all the dolls were still there and it was still really creepy. Still very creepy. All right. Well, now let's talk about the similarities and differences between the real life lore and supernatural. So, the difference, of course, was the hoodoo and the sigil and the hoodoo using. But everything else is actually like really similar. Like the broken face doll near that guy, she looked just like Mandy in there. Oh my gosh, crazy. Both little girls died and like, used dolls. Well, all right. Thank you so much to all of my fellow wayward spirits for joining me on this journey today. And if you want to go on more hunts with me, make sure to subscribe to Wayward Spirit Pod wherever you listen to podcasts or on YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss next week's episode where we are researching doppelgangers. I'm really excited for this because there's some fun doppelganger episodes. Yes, I'm really excited. And if you're wanting more Wayward Spirit Pod, check us out on Patreon at Wayward Spirit. There are the visuals to season 1 and 2 of Wayward Spirit Pod up there, as well as some bloopers and behind the scenes stuff. So go check that out. And I would love to put together some listener stories and learn what you think about haunted dolls, or maybe you've had an experience with a haunted doll or object yourself. I would love to hear all of your stories. Just send me an audio file, video file, text file, whatever you are comfortable with, to waywardspiritpod@gmail.com so I can get that on the podcast. And if you are wanting even more Wayward Spirit Pod, check us out on Instagram at Wayward Spirit Pod, at Wayward Spirit TV, on YouTube at Wayward Spirit TV, and on Patreon at Wayward Spirit. Well, all right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will see all of you Wayward Spirits next week, and don't forget to stay spooky. Bye.